technology of the future, real-time engagement as the frontier of the next generation. Just to set the scene, my name is Vanessa Mullin, and I'm the business development lead for Metaverse here at Agora. And we've got some great guests here with us today to talk about kind of the future of the Metaverse and the future of technology. And with that being said, maybe we can have our panelists jump in and do some intros. Perfect. I will start with Tim. Tim, if you want to introduce yourself, where you're from, and what your team is doing.
Great. Thanks, Vanessa. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today. My name is Tim Train. I am running a startup called Ronday that is building a new kind of connection and collaboration platform that's based on genuine human presence as what we're trying to enable and facilitate. We don't like to talk about ourselves as a Metaverse app just because there's so much baggage that is now kind of associated with that as a label, but it's a place for you to be connected and collaborate with people that are in your kind of more dense networks of people.
Perfect. And Matthew, how about yourself?
Hi guys. Well, super excited to be here today. I'm Matthew, the CEO of the Sandbox in the US. The Sandbox, we're very proud to say we are a Metaverse, probably one of the biggest Web3 Metaverse today. And I'm based in Los Angeles, and I'm building, our US operations.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. We do have some other panelists who may jump in later, but for now, I think we can start with our questions. And Matthew, I think I want to put my first question to you. So we've seen some interesting stats come out this week from DApp Radar about the DAUs at Decentraland. Some interesting news come out about how Meta and Horizon is landing internally as well as externally. And I think yesterday I checked on Nike Land and there were 71 active users. So what can we do to create engaging experiences that don't just have people jump in once but keep them coming back?
I've seen those reports, and I have to say we were very, very surprised because these reports are so far from reality. And I think the DApp Radar is measuring the number of paying users, people who actually interact with the smart contract, not active users. And I can tell you that I was looking at our metrics yesterday. We had 32,000 active users during the past 24 hours. So way more than the DApp Radar make it think so. So, we've been trying to correct the story. And I think it's probably the same with Decentraland. They mentioned 38 DAUs, and it can't be true. It's much more than that. I think they have 6,000, 7,000. So besides that, I think this is still a nascent industry. We still have the industry. We have a lot of work to do. We have to improve the product, improve the onboarding. Especially Web3 is still very difficult for a lot of people with the wallet system. And I can tell you that at the Sandbox, we're working very, very hard to make this experience a bit smoother. And we have metrics, improving every month. So I think we're on the right track. It's going to take time. It's brand new, it takes time.
And do you think there's anything else that can be done aside from running? I know that there are always some exciting concerts and things going on, but is there anything else that we can do to pull users in on a daily basis to kind of translate that real life mentality into the Metaverse?
Yeah, that's what we're doing at the Sandbox. We're coming from a gaming background, and this is also what sets us apart from maybe other Metaverse, who are maybe a bit more purely social by nature. And at the Sandbox, we've been doing games for 10, 11 years. And if you go to the Sandbox, you'll have quests and leaderboards and challenges and competition. And I think it's probably the best way to onboard people into Web3 crypto. And it's also a great way to have people, engage, come back, tell their friends, and stay on the long term.
And I guess, Tim, on your side at Ronday with gamification, what are you guys doing to help make sure that users are coming back? Do you focus on gamification at all, or what's your strategy to build regular users?
Yeah, so we are also coming from a gaming background, and most recently from kind of more of a free-to-play mobile background. I started learning free-to-play at Zynga. We built a game called Frontierville. That was the number 3 moneymaker at Zynga back in the day. And then another mobile strategy game called Dominations that's still going strong 8 years after its launch. So very strong gaming background. For us, though, it's kind of more light gamification and maybe the UX of games where, we kind of know how to delight users on a heartbeat by heartbeat level. But for us, it's about utility. It's about, really answering the question of why would somebody engage with our platform on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis? And for us, that comes back to this is about human connection. That what's missing out of a lot of the platforms that are out there now is the sense of being able to really connect with people that I care about, that are in my world. And so you're building more ways for people to connect within our platform and other metaverse platforms. I think is what we need to continue iterating towards as an industry.
Very cool. And I mean, it's one of the reasons that I joined Agora, is because I really believe that, voice and video are such a powerful way to create community, and having a strong network and being able to communicate just as you would in real life with people in the metaverse will make it feel more real and make people, I think, less aware of that sense of being digital. And do you find with your users, are they mostly a younger generation who are eager to experiment, or do you think that your user base is kind of an expansion of maybe older users and younger users? Who do you find is more open to embracing your metaverse platforms and technologies? A question for the room. Maybe we'll start with you, Mathieu.
I mean, on our side, we have surprisingly, we have a pretty old. I mean, when I say old, I mean 18 plus. 1845 is really our sweet spot in terms of users. And a lot of people assume we have teenagers or preteens, and it's absolutely not the case. I mean, we also based on crypto, so you need a wallet, you need a bit of knowledge in cryptocurrency. So maybe it's a bit harder for the younger generation. But we are older, and we are trying to really reach the mass audience, and that's why we're bringing partners like Gucci and Adidas and Warner Music or Snoop Dogg and many others that are coming to the Sandbox, because we don't want to be a niche product just for early adopters. We want to really reach the mass audience.
And yourself, Tim, who are your kind of user base?
Yeah, our user base is, I mean, for us, it's a lot about people that want to collaborate together. And so kind of, more smaller groups, 20, 50, 100 people that might want to actually interact, multidisciplinary, that have a lot of reasons to talk amongst each other. And so, there's not really an age band there. It's kind of all over the place. We've also tried to emphasize very simple control systems. You don't need to two-hand it with your mouse and keyboard to kind of move around the space. Just very simple and elegant, and very easy even for a grandparent to jump in and use.
Cool. And I guess, I mean, Tim, I'll start with you then for my second question. When you're trying to build a stable community, are you focusing more on one-off meetings and events, or do you think that creating an async environment where people can jump in and out as they please is more powerful for building up that long-term user and that long-term kind of viability for the network?
For us, the answer is really about synchronous. And a chunk of that is because there exist already quite a lot of really good asynchronous tools. That doesn't mean that there can't be disruption in that space, or that somebody's not going to come along with some new paradigm that's going to be great. But right now, most people have pretty good tools to connect with people asynchronously. But what's lacking is that synchronous presence. Zoom and these kind of 2D metaphors are fine for, one-on-one conversations, maybe 2 or 3 people. But I don't think we've yet hit on, as an industry, how it is that people are kind of sharing a shared space together in ways that make you feel like you're really hanging out with somebody as though you're in the real world.
Yeah. And what about you guys at Sandbox?
And for us, it's a bit of both. So we are right now. It's a lot of you have real time, communication. And I agree with Steve. I think connecting people through the metaverse is really very powerful, and this is what people are looking for. So you can go into the Sandbox and meet other people, play in real time. But you can step out and come back at any time and resume what you were doing. We are also working hard on bringing live concert events. So like these more communal, real-time experiences coming early next year. And I think, the metaverse has a lot to bring for those communal or, shared experience moment in real time as well.
And how do you both view, like, if you were to imagine the future of your platform, how many hours would you say a day that you would hope that a typical Sandbox or Atlas Space user would want to be involved in whatever you're building? How many hours do you think is like the dream for someone to spend within the metaverse?
I mean, I can start if that's okay with you. I mean, we already know that when people play the Sandbox, they spend on average 40 minutes per session,
Okay.
which is quite good, and
Yeah.
hopefully we want to have more. I would say, however, we don't want. I think we would, if people spend like tens of hours or their whole life in the metaverse, that would be for me a nightmarish dystopian future, and we don't want this. We don't want to replace reality. We want to maybe augment it or to complement it sometimes. And also we don't believe in this, also dystopian nightmare having one company controlling everything. So we hope it's going to be multiple metaverse that connect with one another and people are free to roam from one to another. So I think it's going to be a quite decent chunk of time, maybe a few hours, but I hope, people will also go on with their lives and meet people in real time as well.
Yeah. And Tim, what about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it really gets down to the utility, which is going to there's going to be different groups that find different utility. For groups that are collaborative groups using Ronday, we've seen engagement of 5 to 6 hours per user per day. They're not sitting there staring at Ronday predominantly. It's kind of a second screen thing that they pay attention to when they need to talk to people, collaborate with people, just chat with people about their day, their kids, whatever. But most of the time, the actual work is happening on their primary screen. But we also see people using it for social hangouts. That might be 2 hours. Educational experiences, 1 hour. Really, again, it's about building for utility and not so much for what an ideal top line number is at an hour's perspective.
And you mentioned, Mathieu, kind of the idea of, no one ring to rule them all, or no one business controlling the metaverse. Are you guys part of any of the standards forums that have been popping up to kind of help combat that idea of one person building all of the fences, or what are you guys doing to make sure that you're part of the decision and the standards processes?
I mean, for us, it's all about Web3 technology and this decentralized, blockchain where it's permissionless. Anyone can build on top of it. It's also interoperable by nature. So if you built an avatar inside the Sandbox, you could use it inside another metaverse, provided that this other metaverse, wants to render it from a graphic perspective. But there is nothing that prevents anyone to use our NFTs. Everything inside the Sandbox is an NFT, and it's NFTs are already part of a standard. It's called RTE2022 to be technical, and so I really believe that this interoperability can be made possible through Web3 and cryptocurrencies and NFTs in general.
And what about you guys, Tim?
Yeah, which question of that?
I mean, we'll start with, are you guys joining any of the standards forums that have popped up? How are you trying to make sure that you're part of the, as Mathieu said, the interoperability problem solving process, and making sure that your Ronday can maybe connect one day with Sandbox and people can jump in and out of both, and there isn't kind of walls between all of these experiences within Web3 and the metaverse?
Yeah, for us right now, we're focused on integration with existing just NFTs, 2D, 3D, PFPs, those sorts of things. We are not part of a standards group, but our investment round came partly from Animoca. And so we kind of, I'm talking to the guy there who's on the standards committee, but I don't expect that we personally will be driving that anytime soon. We're very happy to see what's happening in that broader ecosystem to be sure that we're part of interoperability, composability conversations.
Cool. And I think this really leads to a great focus of my next question is, every conference that I've attended in the last little while, people really feel like the metaverse is a dirty word. They don't like to talk about it. I think ever since Facebook rebranded to Meta and sort of, it felt like claimed stake on the metaverse, people have been really apprehensive. And what are your thoughts on people's fears towards the metaverse? Do you think it is deeply related to all of the news with Meta, or do you think there's maybe other reasons why people are afraid right now to jump in? And Mathieu, I think you hit on a good point. Like, I think there is a fear of this dystopian future sometimes, where people worry that our entire lives will become digital and people won't look up from their screens and we'll all live in VR headsets. Like, how do you anticipate the future of the metaverse and making everyone feel like it's not going to consume their lives, but instead enable them to have better experiences?
Yeah, I think the fear is, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw this movie called Ready Player One, from a few years ago, and this is the fear that people project on the metaverse, and they think, yeah, we're going to live in what is essentially favelas, and you put these goggles, and then you live this amazing life controlled by one company. And I really hope it's not going to be that, and I hope it's not going to control by this company from the West Coast that everyone knows, and that's why we're working hard also to be interoperable, to be open, to attract brands and companies, and I don't see this I don't see this fear or this apprehension from for example big companies and artists and musicians with they're still banging at the door for Sandbox, and we're working with them, and it's still a very, very strong interest. I mean, I can, if the metaverse is to be controlled by this one company, I think they would be right to be a bit fearful. But if we have this future where it's multiple metaverse, it's also for us the future of the metaverse is multiple devices. So right now we work on desktop PC, desktop Mac, soon on mobile, and maybe virtual reality goggles, AR glasses, maybe smart TVs, who knows? I think people will use the metaverse in different ways and at different times of the day, for example, at different times of the week. And I don't think, I think the future can really be bright.
Yeah. And what about you guys then, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit editorializing, but I think that a good chunk of the hesitancy around it is really about just kind of have social platforms improved or detracted from ourselves as humans, ourselves as culture, ourselves as a nation, our communities. And I think that's where a lot of that hesitancy comes from. And I think it's a legitimate concern that people might have. And so, to the extent that the metaverse enables better connections, enables stronger connections, enables for communities to flourish, but that is as yet unclear. If we can't provide utility to a broad range of people, eventually on a decades-long time frame, being everyone on the planet, then we may not find the adoption scale that we're hoping for. And so again, that emphasis has to be on utility, on connection, on leaning into the humanity that we can bring to these platforms, instead of checking my phone 120 times a day and wondering, am I actually better off by having this device in my pocket at all times? So that's my thoughts on it.
And then do you think that the future then is probably starting with mobile for mass adoption? Do you think that VR will get to a place where people will have the option to have VR headsets that are affordable in their homes at mass scale, or where do you see kind of the future of metaverse technology then? Because I know that we have all got this, right? So is this the key to the metaverse, or do you think there's space for more?
Yeah, I don't mean to pound the drum too much, but I think that if you build something with true utility, people will migrate to whatever is the form factor that actually aligns with that. Mobile is certainly a big part, especially at a global scale of that. VR headsets, I mean, this might be a controversial statement, but I don't really see how we get there. Well, I think that most people don't want to spend a lot of time in a detached, full immersive, kind of heavy sort of thing. A friend of mine put it this way: he said, you never have to tell someone when their VR demo is over. And so they play with it for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then they're like, that was really amazing. And then they take it off. You never have to tap them on the shoulder and, ask them about that. And so I think we're a ways away yet from tech that's as seamless, that I actually want to, live in it for hours at a time. But, PCs, mobile, these are, other handheld devices. These are sufficient to build utility off of right now, and we'll just see what happens in the next 8 to 10 years. I don't have the answers, but it'll be interesting to find out.
I'm one of the unlucky few that is plagued with VR nausea, so it's very difficult for me to imagine a world in VR, because it just makes me quite ill, and it's not for me. But I did speak to a company recently who thinks that the answer may be solved by haptics and being able to kind of brace yourself in the metaverse and have that physical presence to help combat VR motion sickness. So there is hope yet for us. But what about you, Mathieu? Do you think, it's a combination of headsets, desktop, mobile? Do you think there will be one platform through them all, or how do you view it?
Yeah, I think it's for us. It's more a combination of them all.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, desktop computers, mobile. I think VR glasses they're finally taking off. You see
Mm-hmm.
the sales figures from even from Meta.
Yeah.
It's still small, but you can see the curve going up. And I think the elephant in the room is really Apple. When are they going to enter the space?
Yeah.
Probably early next year. And I think this might change a lot. And I maybe also I'm maybe more a believer in AR glasses rather
Yeah.
than purely
Agreed.
virtual
Yeah.
reality goggles, because they don't really shut you down from reality. They're more
Mm-hmm.
augmented. And I think from a philosophical perspective, I prefer that.
Yeah.
And I think they, when they're ready, I think they will probably be very successful and provide real utility for
And do
us.
you see
So
an
for us, it's a bit of
opportunity?
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see an opportunity for maybe an AR pass-through Sandbox experience? And
Definitely,
you,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
we're
what?
looking into it. It's the market is not there. I mean, let's be honest. It's
Yeah.
even you can try AR apps and games on your phone today, and it makes good demos, but nobody's really playing them. It's too
Mm-hmm.
difficult, too awkward. But when glasses come in, I think it's going to be a different ballgame.
Yeah. At Immerse in Madeira recently, there was someone up on stage who was promoting AR contacts as a way to kind of live your life and not have anything on your face at all, which I found equally terrifying and exciting. So I think there's a lot of good stuff on the way, and the key is to keep learning and spend every day reading a lot of news and a lot of research, and staying positive. But we've got Pinar here as well, who has joined. So maybe you want to take a few moments to introduce yourself, what you guys are doing at Atlas, and tell us more about your work, and then we can jump into another question. Thanks so much for jumping in.
Yeah, hey guys, and thanks Vanessa for knowing my name. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
Because I exactly jumped in as Burçin's avatar,
I had a brief. Don't worry. I was tipped off.
With some internet connection problem right now, so I'm one of the co-founders of Atlas Space, so I just jumped in. Sorry if I have some cough. I'm a little bit cold these days.
Don't worry. Tell us about Atlas and tell us what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I've been following the whole session from the beginning, so I can wrap up very briefly.
Please do.
We come from a very different background, actually. We come from architecture background. So we've been designing the real lives of people, the real interactions, the real spaces for 17 years. This included amusement parks to hospitals, to residential areas to parks, whatever you call. So the way we design a Metaverse platform, we have got a platform called Atlas Space, and our direct target is enterprises. So we've been developing virtual reality and augmented reality for enterprises for the last 7 years. Back then, it was not called Metaverse, those experiences we were trying to define, hey guys, you're gonna meet in a virtual environment. This is gonna be super awesome, and they had no idea back then. So we're super happy with how the market is evolving right now. About the adaptation problems or any fears that is happening against Metaverse, these are supernatural things. I mean, the world knows that the next big thing is Metaverse. It's going to be a huge life changer, game changer. The only question is nobody knows how it's going to happen. So we pretty much give this analogy to explain better. When the wheel first invented, it was for pottery. So the disc was on the ground turning to make the pots. Only 300 years later, somebody just put it perpendicular and made a car out of it, a chariot, and then the whole world changed. Yeah. So right now, the way people are walking around trying to find a solution, the disc is on the ground. So it's for pottery. So we are all, the whole industry, the whole market, trying to find the best way for people to come back. The daily number of users are not the way it is expected right now, because the way it is seen right now is a tool. I mean, we don't wear the watch because it's an item. We wear the watch because we want to see the time. So the same way, people are trying to find their purpose. And on that road, we have some progress. We have a tremendously increasing demand from the enterprise side. because what we're trying to do for them is designing very unique experiences, understanding the human perception. So we're just observing what their actual needs, just like in the architecture background. They have got certain needs. What they want is making their lives easier. That's the only thing they want. And if we show them their life is going to be easier this way, then they come. For example, we made an experience for a bank branch. So virtual banking. Okay. It's not about it's not about the space. It's about the perception design. So whatever we did on this 3D environment, the virtual bank branch, the meta branch, actually has got the same information on their right now regular website. Bunch of information about credit cards, about credits, about like customer service. The only thing we did was turning all of this into a visual concept.
Yeah.
So when it's visual, I mean, I don't go to my bank's website and read anything. I try to call some customer service.
Yeah. Can I interject with a question then? Do you think that and maybe a question for the whole group, do you think that there's an opportunity for every industry to have a digital twin in a metaverse space? Is that how you envision the future? Like you'll have a virtual bank as well as a physical bank, and you'll have a virtual school and a physical school. Like how do you think every industry needs to enter the metaverse, or should it only be certain industries where there is true utility? And maybe we'll start with Tim, because you've got the workspace angle.
Sure. I think that's going to be a progression over time. There's markets have a lot of different demographics and people associated with them. And so, brands right now that are very forward thinking are engaging early in the metaverse. They want to be in what's hot and cool and new. And that's where their audience is. And they want that, they want that sheen around them. It's great that, banks, which you think of as being, one of the stodgiest of kind of older professions that have to serve a very broad demographics, are seeing such traction with a metaverse application like that. So, I think it's just going to be progressive over the next couple of decades. And then everyone will want some kind of footprint in what we're currently terming the metaverse.
And Mathieu, you guys have a pretty wide variety, I think, of activations at this point in Sandbox. Who do you think was your least expected client that decided that they wanted to enter Web3 so far?
Our vision is that everything you do in the real world, you'll have some form of it inside the Sandbox or inside the Metaverse. Obviously, not exactly the same. So, for example, I thought, you're not going to go to a restaurant inside the Sandbox, right? You're going to go to a real place. But we just announced a deal with Hell's Kitchen and Gordon Ramsay, and we're going to bring Hell's Kitchen inside the Sandbox. That was a bit surprising that you can even something that's needs to be in person. You can translate that into
Heineken did the same thing though, didn't they? They sold a virtual beer. So I mean, there are a few that are doing it. And Tim, actually, we've got a question for you in the question box that I thought I might shoot your way from my colleague Jonah. And he wanted to know what your biggest lesson is that you've carried from Ronday's development, considering your past in game development.
I mean, for us, I think it all comes down to a real focus on the nuts and bolts of the user experience. Like part of, especially for free-to-play games, the funnel is so broad, but it narrows very quickly every time somebody hits something that they don't understand or that they don't like. And so for us, that's an emphasis on super simplicity. What's the minimum you need to teach somebody to really engage with the platform? And how do you get them to be delighted as quickly as possible in the platform? That's been a huge focus for us as we've built Ronday, and it all comes from that gaming, being punched in the face by free-to-play gaming funnels. So,
and the last question that I had for the group, and I think you've kind of highlighted it in each of your responses throughout the session, but do you think that like now, next, or later, when do you think brands should start experimenting in Web3 technology? Do you think everyone should start now? Is there such a thing as a bad idea or a bad activation? or a bad execution, should people be taking risks and making mistakes, or should they be waiting until the technology maybe is there? And maybe we'll start with you, Burçin, or no, Mathieu, please go ahead.
No, I mean, on our side, I think they should start right now. It's, it's not very expensive. You can buy a piece of land in the Sandbox for a few $1,000s, and you can build an experience by yourself. Either, you have your own team, or we have a list of, builders and Metaverse builders, and you can experiment even behind closed doors if you don't want to show people what you're doing, and you can see. So I would strongly encourage everybody to experiment. You don't have to go, all in and spend millions of dollars. You can test and see what works, and build it by yourself.
Burçin, what? Pinar, sorry, I keep looking at the name. Pinar, tell me about your thoughts. How have you been? How you've been taking on clients? Do you think that everyone should enter the Metaverse now? What are your thoughts?
Well, we suppose everyone should immediately start trying. This is the time of discovery. Again, the bank example, the bank that released, they opened a virtual branch, immediately got a fine by the banking regulations agency. But now also they're in progress. Instead of the fine, they are now trying to find how to adapt this technology all together with them. So if they didn't do it, they couldn't reveal this, and this progress wouldn't happen. And they wouldn't know what the user experience will happen like. So every industry, no matter how analog or digital they are, they have to start one step at a time, little bits, or maybe giants. They should start trying right now.
I love it. And what about you, Tim? Now, next or later?
Well, I mean, everybody should be thinking now about what digital transformation is going to mean for their brands. And, the right answer, again, is going to be different per organization and their goals and their audiences. But yeah, if you're not, immediately following this, and I think dipping your toe in to at least understand the vocabulary, the trends, the potential of these new spaces, then you're definitely missing out as a brand.
Yeah. Something that we've done at Agora is, we've started a whole, I would call it like a Metaverse pod. So we've got kind of a strike team we're doing our research. We're speaking to industry leaders like yourselves, understanding what people want, what they don't want, what they're afraid of, and trying to build towards that. Do you think as a whole, that's maybe a good way to go about it for other businesses? Should every business have a Metaverse lead like me, or do you think, slow and steady? Tim?
I mean, everybody should have somebody whose job it is at least part of the time to actually follow these trends, take a look at things. And again, just dipping your toe in the water to Matthew's point about, right now it's not as that expensive, and you can, learn some lessons relatively cheaply. And those lessons will become harder to learn, more expensive, more difficult to learn those lessons later. So start now.
Cool. We've got actually another question in the chat, and I maybe I'll start with you, Mathieu, given what you guys do at Sandbox. The question is, how important are human-like avatars versus more fictional or cartoonized, I guess, avatars in these spaces? I find this really fascinating just as a background. So I used to work for a digital human startup called Didimo, who actually just released their funding today. So congratulations, Didimo, on 7 million. But they specialize in photorealistic digital humans. And, I believe there is a space for that. And there is a space for exploring what your identity might be, your alter identity. How do you guys approach that, Mathieu, at Sandbox? And then we'll take it to the group as well.
So I agree. I think there is a room for those two approaches. I think there is room for photorealistic avatars, even photorealistic metaverse. At the Sandbox, we're taking a different approach. We have a voxel style. If people, if you go to sandbox.game, you'll see what I'm talking about. And because for two reasons, we really want to focus on the narrative and the fun and the experience, rather than to be extremely photorealistic. And I think especially for human, human beings, I think our brain is so much, we're so much used to analyze face every day. It's you notice the slightest, issue with a synthetic face today. Even so, it's making a lot of progress. So at the Sandbox, we're really focusing on this pixel voxelated style, and focusing on the storytelling and the fun, and also because we feel it's it's better and easier for creators. We want to tap into a vast pool of creators. And our creators tools are really super easy to use. Then the code is just drag and drop and check, pull down menus, check boxes. So we're focusing a bit more on that on our side, but I think there is room for everything.
And I guess this is something that I have heard that people struggle with, like how when the visual fidelity or the visual style of every metaverse is so different, I think people have trouble wrapping their heads around how they can jump from one to the other. Their avatar in Sandbox, is it going to jump into Ronday? Is it going to jump into Atlas Space? It's a question that comes up often, and I think that's why the idea of our virtual identities is so interesting, because do you have multiple versions of yourself depending on where you are? Sometimes I want to be me in this meeting, very professional, but other times maybe I want to be a cat. So how do you make that identity flux in the metaverse? And Pinar, what are you guys doing at Atlas?
Like you said, when it's the business environment, people want to be more realistic. It does not mean photorealistic. Sometimes it's just enough if it looks like themselves in a human shape, like resemble. We have got some clients who want to be exactly like themselves, like the digital twin. So we've got a photogrammetry studio. We create their like digital twins, and so that they can jump in with their exact selves. But the rest is okay with any humanoids. But eventually, in a meeting, they don't want to make a meeting with a carrot or a dinosaur. So, so that's the thing. But that's the norm of today. Maybe 10 years later, it will be totally okay to make a meeting with a dinosaur and a carrot together, discussing the space technologies. So, today that's the case. So we're just listening to our clients. So,
it always pulls me back to those. There was a few news stories, weren't there? There was a teacher who got stuck as a potato when he was delivering one of his lessons, and he had to give his full presentation to his class, his university, as a potato. And then there was the gentleman who,
fun to listen to,
and then the legal situation where the guy was a cat and he couldn't turn his avatar off. So I think there are still hiccups along the way, but I love the idea of flux. And what about you guys, Tim? How are you guys doing things at Ronday? Because you are more of a professional, aren't you, setting? So how do you handle this?
Yeah, I mean, for us, one of our kind of catchphrases is presence is our North Star. The notion that what we're trying to do is encourage that sense of genuinely being with people online. And so for us, the slider bar is set all the way towards either full abstraction, that you are literally just a colored orb, or you have video on. And so, and I find that I actually feel more present when I'm talking to somebody in a voice I recognize and they're a colored orb than I do if you're a cat or a dinosaur, or whatever. Now, I don't necessarily think we yet have the right answer to this, because that's going to be different for different contexts, different platforms, different use cases. But we're slamming the slider bar all the way towards, let's try to really build human connection in the way that people are already wired for it. And yes, absolutely, 10, 20 years down the line, it may be completely acceptable to come to a business meeting as a dinosaur. But for right now, Ronday is trying to push the limit on presence as being the defining feature of the platform. And so that's how we're approaching that question.
Perfect. And I guess maybe a question for the floor. You kind of already answered the question from Jonah, but to Mathieu and to Pinar, what is the biggest lesson that you have taken away from this new exploration of the metaverse and this business in the metaverse? What is the biggest lesson that you've learned, or the hardest lesson that you've learned in all of this experimentation phase that we're going through over these last few years? Maybe we'll start with you, Mathieu. Oh, sorry, Pinar, please go ahead. There's a bit of a delay.
Yeah, sure. The biggest lesson we got during our 6-year Atlas Space journey is experience comes first. So it's not about technology, or it's not about being digital. It's about experiencing. So the more we pay attention to this, the higher traction we have, the more customers we pull. It's also the hardest part, because when you exclude that, it's easier, it's more scalable, because what I'm saying here includes a lot of private work for each and every client. On the enterprise side, it's possible in a way. On the B2C side, maybe it's harder. But yeah, this is definitely the biggest lesson.
Yeah, but it's about the same for us. I think what matters is really the experience, bringing something frictionless, delightful to users. That's really what matters behind,
Hmm.
people couldn't care less about technology. And if you build something fun and interesting and engaging, I think people will come and stay. And that's really the core focus of the Sandbox at the moment.
And when do you guys think we will get there? This question came up a lot in Madeira as well. Like, what do you think is the timeline for people to start adopting this regularly into their everyday lives? The everyday person, there's a lot of us who work in tech who are very excited about it, but my mom, my sister who do not work in the industry, who are more apprehensive, like, what do you think is the timeline to get people excited and into the metaverse? We'll start with you, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's again going to be really different for different demos, and some people still don't have mobile phones. My grandparents never did, and so some of that's just a kind of gradual turnover of people that are familiar with digital vocabularies and always on identities. And so, yeah, a lot of that is defining what you mean by when will we get there? What is
where
there?
is there?
Is it, when whatever 70% of people spend X amount of hours in the platform? To me, again, it's all about utility. When will people find it easier to log into Atlas Space Bank instead of actually having to call somebody up and sit on hold for a while, or actually, God forbid, have to go to an actual branch? When we make those things easy and human-centered, then, and we learn our lessons, and that's a process. We make it to where it's super seamless, one click, boom, I can do that easier. Then that's when people will, it'll be more of a mass migration as opposed to early penguins dipping their toes in the water.
And I guess any last thoughts from anyone? I know that we're a bit early, we are missing a speaker, but any last thoughts about, what can we see in the next few months from each of your platforms? Mathieu, you mentioned virtual concerts perhaps, so maybe we can give each of you a few minutes, seconds to plug, what to look for in the next 6 months coming out from Sandbox. What should we be most excited about? And then we'll go around the table.
Yeah, so the Sandbox is still in alpha mode, even so we have a few 100,000 monthly active users. And it's open, but we do it by season, so we open and we close. So what you can look forward in the next 6 to 12 months is having this world open 24/7 for everybody, having more content. Right now we have about 100 experiences, and we want thousands of experiences built from creators, individuals, big companies, artists, and it's all about creating fun experiences with great content.
Perfect. And Pinar, back to you. What about you guys at Atlas?
We have got some interesting scale of projects upcoming in a different level, not like companies, not like individuals, which I cannot really reveal right now. So the next 6 months will be something big on the Atlas Space side.
Yeah.
I hope I could reveal a little bit, but it includes a lot of comfort for everyone on Earth. It's a global thing. But beyond that, whatever I can reveal is because we're trying comfort of people, they're making their life easier. We're trying to increase the number of platforms we support. So right now we already do web and virtual reality at the same time. We're gonna release our mobile version very soon.
Very cool.
We're thinking about a couple of other platforms to support because we want it to be accessible. The experience, it's in different levels and perceptions. Even VR and web makes huge difference, and mobile is different, but still, existence and being there is a key. So we're gonna make better efforts to make it happen.
Yeah, and for us, it's all about, we're kind of entering the cycle of just, user feedback, iterate. We recently spent a bunch of time re-architecting the platform to be a browser-first experience, which is tremendously simplified onboarding, no app install, anything like that. And that's made a huge difference for that, that wide funnel and being sure that people don't fall out of that. And so now we're just engaging with communities and evaluating where things work for them, where they don't, what new features are they excited to add. And always in the back of our minds is trying to get even more games in there. Part of what's fun about it, and I saw this in season 3 with the Sandbox, playing around with that recently, of just, even just, relatively light gamification is like, this is really fun, and had a great time, wandering around the Sandbox world with those sorts of things. And we want to add our own twist to that in Ronday over the next few months.
Perfect. Well, let me just say to everyone watching, is there any more questions before we wrap up with our panel? I'll just check the chat to make sure, but I think that might be it. But really, truly, guys, thank you so much for joining, for offering all of your insight. Of course, I urge everyone who's tuned in to check out all 3 of your platforms. I think you've got a really great, or we've got a really great base here of, someone working in enterprise, someone working in more of a workspace, and someone working in more of a play side of the metaverse. So it's a great cross section of what's available out there. And when it comes to embracing the core technology of the metaverse, I think you guys are a really great cross section of how anyone can choose to jump in and try their best at whatever the future will be when it comes to the metaverse. So thank you everyone for joining. We'll leave it there, and I look forward to chatting more in the future.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tina. Thanks.